Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 405.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because, you know what? Today we're going to absolutely 100% validate a theory that my wife and I have. A theory that I believe puts many of us at a disadvantage, but yet is full of lessons that you and I can learn and leverage to our advantage. You're like, Jay, what are we talking about today? Today, we're talking about the ability to earn income via cash flow with a business and who out there might already have developed some of those skill sets. You say, well, Jay, isn't that what I'm doing? Yes, it is what you're doing, but you've heard me say that, artists have an advantage in failing. You've heard me say that people who play sports have an advantage because they know how to fail and practice and move forward. You've heard me say these things before. Well, now I'm going to remind you that there's another person, a type of person out there, a person who has the advantage of running a highly successful business. And you're like, well, who is that? I say we can learn a lot from anyone who's a felon. You're like, what? What do you mean? Someone who went to jail can help me run my business? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Because they know of things like organization, people, structure, and what's interesting is that today's guest is a perfect example of all of these things and more that you'll be able to learn from. I have with me none other than Joe Gagliano. You may know him because he orchestrated, quarterbacked the ASU basketball point shaving scandal, and it is still one of the largest scams in sports history. The son of a cop, which is very interesting in and of itself, which tells us there's a lot that we can learn from Joe. So I'm hoping that you are ready to get some of the insides. How does this happen? And more importantly, let's go listen for the message that's greater than the money. Help me welcome Joe Gagliano. Joe, you there?
I'm here, Jay. Thank you so much. Man, that was a heck of an introduction.
Thanks you for being here. I am glad that you were able to make some time. So this being the first time that you are here, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, etc. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. Chief among them is occasionally as an entrepreneur, we envision ourselves maybe wearing a cape and tights and flying around, saving our customers in various different ways with our products and services. But also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. I mean, if you think about it with Spider-Man, there was a time where he was just, a college kid going to school, taking some photos. And then one day he gets bit by a spider and he has to decide, I've got this new ability. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to use it for good or evil? And more importantly, once all that's said and done, will I be that person that can make a difference? So my question to you is as follows. So before the whole basketball thing, before your businesses, before the things that you have done that you're known for, before family, kids, all this other stuff, my question to you is, who is Joe Gagliano?
Wow, that's a loaded question, man, because I've had a crazy journey, and I like the comparison to the superhero thing without the cape and the tights, of course, but but I do get the correlation in what you're saying there. And I'm just a kid. I'm 48 years old, but I consider myself.
Oh, you can still be a kid at 48. It's okay.
Man, I feel like in my mind, I feel like I'm 20. My body feels like I'm 90. Let's put it that way.
Unfortunately am beginning to understand what that means.
Age is a crazy thing. Years are a crazy thing. But, man, I've been blessed. And in spite of 2 indictments and being a 2-time felon, man, I'm blessed. And as many ugly things as I could say about my crazy journey, Jay, I'm going to tell you in the depths of my heart, I truly believe that 90% of the world would love to have my problems. I mean,
I love it.
Man, I've got a wife that's amazing. I've got 4 kids that are just incredible and healthy. I've got a roof over our head. We've got a few bucks in the bank, and I've got a mind that'll let me do some crazy entrepreneurial things and get things done. So, man, I can't complain. I can't complain.
Okay, so you said something that was really, really important. First of all, congrats on the wife and the 4 kids. I know exactly what that's like. I have 4 kids, and then we got 2 more dogs. I don't know whose thought.
We got 2 dogs too.
That's no funny. Way. Okay, all right, awesome. So I get all of those things. Here's the question, though. You said something about your mind that allows you to do some crazy entrepreneurial things. I think this entrepreneurial game is a lot of mental, for sure, in coming up with the ideas and finding advantages and being able to examine a marketplace to look for the inefficiencies. This question that I have to ask you is I've got to know, between the things that you've been indicted for and the things that you're building businesses around, what skill sets have been transferable? Because they got to be there.
Jay, I think I can answer it like this: is I've been fortunate enough to have the ability to be a creative thinker, a visionary, and wrongly use those talents early on. When I was at the Chicago Board of Trade, I was on the trading floor for many years, and when you're on the Chicago Board of Trade or when you're on any trading floor, you pretty much have 2 vices in the world. You either have a vice of drugs or you have a vice of gambling. Me, I've never used a drug in my life, but never even smoked a cigarette. But, when I was trading and on the floor, I certainly learned how to gamble. So we're all products of our environment, and that's the environment that I was raised with. As you mentioned earlier, my father was a police officer for 18 years in Chicago, came from a great family. We were instilled right from wrong and values. And but at a young, impressionable age, 21, 22, 23 years old, after I left college, I'm down there at the Board of Trade in Chicago on the trading floor. And the people down there that obtained success and that people that are successful traders, I learned, naturally at an impressionable age, you look up to those people. And I looked up to them and soon came to realize that, hey, they weren't really walking the fine line. They were living in the gray areas and everything that they're doing. To be a ethical, honest, successful trader, I mean, in my mind, Jay, is an oxymoron. So I was a product of that environment, that learned early on that success is probably teetering with gray areas. So take that even further with my mindset and my ability to be creative and to be a visionary, because I think I can out-conceptualize just about anyone you put me in a room with. I think I could out-visualize anyone that put me in a room with. I get presented with this ASU thing at the young age of 22 years old, and I just take it to the nth degree. I mean, it's not good enough for me to fix one game and make a few bucks and be under the radar and nobody knows any different. It's not good enough for me just to go to Vegas with a couple $100,000 and double my money. No, I got to do it to the nth degree because that's how I'm wired. I'm wired in a creative way. I'm wired in a visionary way where if I have a concept, I'm going to run with it to the nth degree.
Yeah, I can get that. I mean, if you're going to be anything, be the best at it. Totally understood.
That's exactly it. I just chose the wrong thing to be the best at the wrong time, and and greed just kind of bit me in the butt and kicked me hard, and one or two games should have been the end of it. And, I'm not saying it was right or wrong in any way, shape, or form, Jay, but I'm saying one or two games, it could have made a boatload of money and should have been the end of it. But greed kills.
Understood.
Greed kills, and you go after game 3, and game 3 was easy, and then you go after game 4. And at that point, loose lips kind of sink ships, I guess. And everyone and their brother knew about it, and that's how we got in trouble.
So for those that may not be familiar, and I'm sure you talk about this in your book, No Gray Areas, but what exactly is fixing a game in point shaving? What does that mean?
Well, in pretty much any sporting event, there's a betting line, Jay, and the betting line is meant for bookmakers and sports books to be able to get action from the public on each side of the team. So let's say the Bears are playing the Packers, for example, and the Bears are a 6-point favorite, that 6-point number is meant to balance out action for both sides. So half the people would like to bet the Bears, and the other half the people would like to bet the Packers, ideally. And that's how bookmakers make money. Bookmakers make money by charging for an opinion. They charge 10% for an opinion. That's how Vegas makes money. Everyone has an opinion, and Vegas just capitalizes on it. So it's the same thing when you're looking at point shaving. So in my particular instance, the first game was Arizona State versus Oregon State. Arizona State was a 13-point favorite. So I approached the leading scorer and the point guard for the team, Steven Headache Smith, along with the other guard for the team, Isaac Burton, and said, hey, okay, I'm going to pay you $50,000 a game, and I don't care if you guys win or I don't care if you guys lose. Just don't win the game by more than 13 points. In fact, what I told him was it had to land on 6 on the first game. And sure enough, it landed on 6 because at that point, if they won I can't lose the game. I can't lose my bets unless they win by more than 13 points. And so if you have the leading scorer on the team, if you have the guy that has the ball pretty much in his hands most of the game and dictates the entire tempo of the game, you pretty much can control an outcome of a game. You pretty much can control whether you're going to win by 2 or whether you're going to win by 13.
Wow. Okay. Got it.
Well, hopefully that made enough sense.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about the skill set required to make that happen and how
That's right.
transfers. Because that's the lesson for us as entrepreneurs is while yes, this skill set is being used in a fashion that we don't want to do, the question is let's look at the skill sets that you did use and how we as entrepreneurs can figure out, well, maybe that's a skill set that I need. So what would you say would be some of those skill sets that it takes to be able to do and to actually execute, we'll call it this strategy?
Well, gosh, I certainly want to be careful not to talk about a strategy like this as being a successful strategy that other people should try to emulate. But
agreed.
But I do agree with you, Jay, in saying that there is certainly a skill set involved, and the way I bet games 1, 2, and 3 using, because there's a fine way where a betting line moves. A betting line moves, and that betting line number moves according to monies that are bet. So when you bet more monies and you're above a radar and you're on people's radar, that betting line will move. Well, the last thing you want to do when you're doing something like this is to be on anyone's radar. So, I mean, I used 32 plus hotels in Vegas. You can't really bet over $10,000, $9,900 at any one time because you're going to sign CTRs, which is currency transaction reports, and then you're going to be on the government's radar. I used 15 different bookmakers in the Midwest and on the East Coast, and just really did it that way to spread the action all around. So really nobody got any wiser to what you're doing. But yeah, there was an art to doing that. There was an art in delegating certain things. There was an art in making sure that the overall vision of what I was trying to accomplish got actually in place the way it needed to get in place. So, man, there was a skill set to it. And a lot of people, it's funny you say that, Jay, because a lot of people that have reviewed the books, I think there's 500-600 reviews out there online, different blogs and Amazon and so on. A lot of people say that, give me credit for for being a successful businessman and to being able to compartmentalize certain things and drive certain things home. But I mean, I just don't think of it that way. I never have.
Totally understood. Totally understood. How do you think of it?
Boy, I think of it as just something that I'm just able to do. Whereas when I applied my talents to the proper channels, I've obtained great success. It's here I am 23, 24 years later, I can kick myself in the gut so many flipping times about this ASU choice, because it was really the first time in my life that I ever compromised my integrity, that I knew it wasn't exactly right, but yet I compromised my integrity because of the environment that I was in. I didn't think it was all that wrong. Where now, later on in my life, I'm 48 years old, Jay, and I look at it like, that's BS, Joe. There is no shade of gray that's acceptable. Things in life are either right or wrong or black or white. So that was really how I crafted the book and the message behind what I put in the book. There's 24 chapters in the book, and 8 of it talk about the never before learned details of the ASU thing and the money and how the bets were made. And people always have been fascinated with that because so many people have asked me to sell the rights or tell them the story or do movie deals or book deals. And I've never agreed to any of that stuff in the past. But I wanted to write this book so it has a lesson behind it, a lesson about life choices and a lesson about consequences of those life choices.
And you know what? I want to talk about those life choices in a second, or the concept of life choices in just a moment. However, I want to highlight something. You said 22 hotels, 15 bookmakers, lots of delegation. I'm assuming there was, quote unquote, people on your team who helped execute this vision. There's no way you did all of that communication on your own.
Well, in Vegas with me, Jay, I did have a few people. I mean, there was no way to physically hit all those hotels from when they post the betting line number up there to when the game actually tipped off. So I did have a couple people out there with me that I gave duffel bags full of money to, and they went to different hotels and gave me back the tickets. But everything with the bookmakers and with the players themselves, I mean, that was me. I quarterbacked all that stuff.
Yeah, and I get that. But what I'm saying, what the point that I'm hitting at is that oftentimes as an entrepreneur, we have to lead an organization and get people to do things when they say they're going to do them. And in your case, there's only a small window of time to actually execute, and there's no time there's no room, there's very little margin for error in order to make things happen. Yet, as an entrepreneur, oftentimes we can go, well, I just need one supplier who can get me through to get my product to market. Or I just need one, in today's world, I just need one web server. Yeah, I don't need a backup. But I'm guessing, 22 different hotels says there's a backup. There's a backup for the backup.
Well, there's certainly a plan. There's certainly a plan to execute. And just like, hey, you could be a lucky entrepreneur that's going to kind of step on the proverbial horseshoe and just get lucky with what they're doing. Or you could be an entrepreneur that's going to have a skill set that's going to require some planning and some vision and how to execute that plan. Me, I'm a quasi mixture of both. I believe in a lot of impulse. I believe in a lot of instinct, and I could adjust pretty quickly on the fly when things don't necessarily go my way. But I'm also one that puts a plan in place.
Yeah, and that's what I was listening to, and that's what I heard, and yet your plan seems to be way more detailed in a lot of ways than what other plans that many entrepreneurs might have today. But you mentioned something about life choices, and that's something that I really wanted to key in on. Life choices in the sense that there are many of us right now who are listening to you and I. We have a choice. We have a choice of how to direct our time, money, energy, efforts, resources that we have been gifted and given, yet many of us aren't actually making the choice, and we would be living by what I call default. So I guess my question to you is, when all this was going down, let's compare, the Joe of yesteryear versus the Joe of today. And which one would you say was living by default? And would you say now that you are today living more by a conscious decision of choice and direction?
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'm glad that you are enjoying what you are hearing thus far. But here's one of the things that's really important. One of the most important things that you can do is get started. One of the things that I've said before, and I say again, once you get started, stay started. But more importantly, there can be lots of roadblocks to getting started. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove one of those roadblocks for you and make it a little bit easier. Because the thing that I don't want to stop you is thinking, do I need a local number? How about a long distance number? Or should it be 800? How on earth am I going to make that happen so that people can contact me as I'm out there building my business, making my cash flow grow? But most importantly, understanding that it doesn't have to be difficult. Many of you may know, but if you don't, there's a company out there by the name of Grasshopper. And what I want you to do is I want you to go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow diary. Grasshopper is the entrepreneur's phone system. It works like a traditional phone system, but requires no hardware to purchase, no software to install. It's just a number that flat works. So if you are out there building that distributed workforce across many different locations, it's a way for you to still go out there and make your number be unified, simple, easy to use, something we've been using for quite some time. So again, go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow diary. Now, let's get back to the rest of the story.
Oh, yeah, definitely by conscious choice and decision direction. And I don't know if it's through the crazy journey that I've had, Jay, or if it's just through various life lessons that maturity kind of teaches you. But I'll tell you what, I mean, one thing that I regret, I regret that I wasn't a better steward of the blessings that I got, of the blessings that I had. Growing up, my father my father just passed away about a month ago, but he was my hero in life, and he always used to preach to me all the time, Joey, save 25 cents on every dollar, and I used to shrug it off like, hey, God, what does this old man actually know, and shrug it off like I'm never going to stop making money. What's he talking about? I could do this 8 days a week type of thing. But sure enough, the cyclical cycles like 2009, 10, 11 roll around, and you get punched in the gut pretty hard, and you're leveraged at the wrong time, and you end up taking a butt whipping. And those memories of when your father used to sit down with you when you had crazy digits in your bank account saying save some money, and instead of going to buy the boats, the planes, the horses, build the bigger houses, and buy a couple new cars every year. And that's, I think that's the biggest thing where I look back in retrospect and wish I would have had more maturity and more discipline at a younger age, is that I wasn't a good steward for the blessings I had because I never thought it would end.
Now, that euphoria that you're talking about never thinking that the business is going to never end, it's always going to be this way, I think that's very common for every entrepreneur. There's so many of them who probably are nodding their head right now as they're listening and driving down the highway going, yeah, I've had that feeling, especially those that were in the real estate market going, yeah, I remember what that was like, but that it did not. So today, the Joe of today, what lessons would you say exist when you're out there building a business today? What is it that you would be doing differently, knowing what you now know? Even if let's say business is going well, let's say it's going phenomenally, better than you've ever thought. What decisions do you make differently? What actions do you take that are not the same?
Well, I think the actions I take, now it's, we talked a little bit before the interview, Jay, and you asked me what I'm doing now, and I said, hey, man, I'm really just biding my time, sitting on my hands, trying to make the right decision. Sure, I have a lot of instinct and a lot of impulse and a lot of desire to do various things because I am a serial junkie entrepreneur by nature. But I'll tell you what, it's just I believe in trusting people, but it's like I'm more trust but validate type of thing. More or less dot every flipping I and cross every T that's out there, and partnerships and relationships that I'm going to do business with. I mean, really just want to get a further level of comfort rather than just in the past it would be, hey, somebody's going to approach me. They know I may have a few bucks. They're going to approach me with an idea. I like the way they're smiling. I feel good about it. Let's rock with it. Let's go with it. And then it would turn out ugly 4, 5, 6 months later. Where I think now it's like I'll pump the brakes a little bit and kind of validate more and do a little more research in the situation and realize that there's only so many hours of the day. I mean, to balance family and to balance your kids and being a father and a husband with business is a monumental task.
Yeah.
So it's like there's only 24 hours in a day, Jay.
I've noticed
so
that.
if I'm going to enter and give my time to somebody, I want to make sure it's worthwhile. Just like me sitting here and devoting 45 minutes with you on an interview, I'm convinced and actually convicted in my heart that the message that this book puts out, the message that we're doing with the movie, the message that I'm doing when I speak with young, impressionable athletes is so flippin' strong. It's a roadmap for life. It's a roadmap in life when these kids are 15 to 21, 22 years old and they're impressionable and they could zig, but maybe they should zag. Or if they get 1 degree off center at an early age, by the time you're my age, man, you're way the heck off center. You're never going to get back there. So for me to give time to talk about the book, to talk to various people like yourself and do interviews and doing what I'm doing, I'm telling you from the depths of my heart, it's not to sell books. I can care less about selling books. It's about putting a message out there that I think other people can learn from the painful journey that I've endured. And it's been flipping painful, man. I can't even sugarcoat it. To be branded a 2-time felon and to have to tell your 4 kids that you're going away to prison, it's painful.
Yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily something that you're ever going to escape, but in this particular case, you're beginning it. You've embraced it in a completely different fashion. But go ahead.
Well, the thing of it is that the information age is just so powerful.
Right.
I mean, so powerful. My oldest daughter is 21 years old and dating a great kid. Family's pretty successful out in Southern California. They Google my name. They think I'm the flipping devil.
Oh,
they think I'm the devil. So the information age is so powerful. That's where it gets into consequences of life's choices. You look at these young kids that are on social media, and what does it take for a 19, 20-year-old girl that's going to college and doing well with herself and has aspirations, but to post a mediocrely, scantily clad picture of herself? But then, as an impressionable 19, 18-year-old kid, she posts a picture of herself, but then 10 years later decides to run for public office.
Right.
And that picture's out there on the internet.
Yep.
So people don't think about the consequences of those seemingly innocent choices.
Well, yeah, and I'm not even going to begin to add to what you're saying, because I know exactly the pain of the wrong perception that can be had from social media. But I have a question for you, because I've had the privilege of working with our men's national junior USA basketball team, and for the very same purpose that you were talking about, is trying to get them, going in the correct direction, because many of these kids, they're going to be in the NBA. They're going to go pro because they're that good, and that's what's going to happen. But trying to plant the right ideas of what to do with the money that they're going to earn and be thrown at them and all those types of things as early as humanly possible. I guess my question to you is, to the entrepreneurs that are listening, because you said something that I think was very important. It's not about selling books. It's not all about those. It's the message that you're trying to share and make sure it gets out there. Now, I'm going to make an assumption then that you would say that there's a corollary for those who are entrepreneurs, that they should be more focused on the message of what their company can deliver versus how am I going to get paid my $100,000 this month.
Well, I think you're spot on with that. It's the integrity of your purpose, and I could validate, an example that you just brought up that I brought up earlier about it's not about me selling books, because I can tell you a year and a half ago, I had four 7-figure checks thrown in front of me, from 2 from movie studios and 2 from publishing houses. And I turned each and every one of those down because it meant me selling the story. And if I sold the story, then they could Hollywoodize the story to whatever way they wanted to do it.
Right.
They wanted to put drugs and alcohol and tilt the message and everything else. I'm not going to whore myself out there in any way, shape, or form. So when I make a statement to you that, hey, Jay, it's not about me selling books, in my heart, I'm thoroughly convinced it's about this message. That comes from experience, because my experience is that when you focus on just the dollar, the integrity is always going to get compromised. When you focus on the integrity, the money always seems to follow.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's funny how it kind of goes 180 or it went 180 in my mind. I mean, when I was in my younger days, I mean, everything was about how many dollars were behind it. What am I going to do for the dollars behind it? If it was gray or if it had questionable integrity, it's like, okay, let's do it. But now it's like, I don't want to go anywhere near it.
It's interesting how that can indeed change, because you're just speaking of, it just sounds like you had all of these amazing skill sets, and being in the wrong environment just made it really easy for you to use the skill sets in an improper fashion. So I have to ask this question. How important would you say something like a mentorship would be for other entrepreneurs who find themselves like, look, I feel hyper talented, but the environment that I'm in isn't necessarily lending itself for me to express what it is that's inside, so that I can actually be of value and service to, fellow man or the community or the marketplace at large?
Well, the environment's very important, because as I said earlier, we're all a product of our environment. And I also believe in some type of mentoring as a vital part of growth. But I will say this, and I'll say it candidly, man, we are all flawed in some capacity. There is no one out there that somebody should completely try to emulate, because we're all jacked up in our own ways.
You say that again.
So, I mean, you might have someone that's got tremendous business ethics, but they're a piss poor family man and a horrific, husband,
right.
or wife.
Right.
So it's very challenging to find someone that has balance and does the right thing all the way across the board. So I believe in mentorship, and I believe that there's a lot of guidance that people can give younger, impressionable people that are working their way up and trying to figure their way out through life. But just be selective and realize going into it that, hey, everyone's jacked up.
Yeah, totally. But I think what you're saying lends itself to, the title of the book in and of itself. And when you go no gray areas, I'm kind of curious though to understand why you titled it that way. It feels like there's a message even just within that.
Well, because there's several choices that I documented throughout the book, choices that I knew going into it, that it probably would not end up great, but yet it provided instant gratification for me. So it's when I looked at those choices, and I tried to narrow it down to maybe a handful or so throughout the course of the book, and the book goes through chronological order of my life, and when I look at those choices, all of them had that similarity, Jay. All of them had that similarity where, hey, they felt warm and good, and there was instant gratification, but gosh, I knew in my mind that it was not going to really end up all that good. So, the No Gray Areas title kind of encapsulated that theory behind it.
Got it. Now, this actually is awesome, because it lends itself to a topic of conversation that we're always talking about here at the Cashflow Diary, is that I don't fix and flip. I don't do the short-term transactions, etc. And because, well, I don't. I prefer to actually invest, but you are in a unique position for me to ask this particular question. When you bring up the idea of instant gratification, that's often how I perceive those that fix and flip, is that they want to go out there, spend a little bit of money, get a whole bunch back, and do it all over again and again and again, risking making bigger bets each and every time. My question to you is, with your knowledge of gambling, what would you say is the difference between actual investing and gambling?
I think it's the mentality behind what your objectives are. If your objectives are be like a you talk to a Warren Buffett and you talk about building wealth. It's his is a buy and hold pattern, and whether it's real estate, whether it's stock inside companies, or whether it's a widget, whatever it is, it's a buy and hold mentality to truly believe in the theory of compound interest behind it, and that you're going to build on true wealth if you're a buy and hold guy and you buy good companies, good products, good real estate at what you believe to be good prices. Or you got the trader mentality, where it has that quasi instant gratification appeal to it. And hey, I know a lot of guys that just do really well in trading. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of guys that do tremendously well gambling. And I believe if I wasn't married with kids and settled down in the life that I'm in, I believe I could destroy the gambling world. I believe I could make $1 million a year with my eyes closed just by picking certain spots and being disciplined. Because the biggest thing to build, whether it's building wealth on a long-term basis and a buy and hold thing, whether it's trading or whether it's gambling or whether it's any business that you're going to go into, Jay,
yes,
the biggest quality is discipline. If you don't have discipline and you're going to deviate from the disciplines that you set up from the get-go, you are going to fail.
Got it.
You are going to fail. And money management's the big thing.
Got it.
So it's all about disciplines in my book.
Totally get it. Now, for those that have listened this far and probably want to find out more, maybe even more about the story, maybe even pick up a copy of the book, what's going to be the best way for them to track you down and find out what you're up to?
Well, nograyareas.com, and gray is spelled Grey. Nograyareas.com is the website we set up. It's got the intro to the books in there, a bunch of videos, social media videos. It's got the movie trailers inside of it. It's got a bunch of press clippings. If you're just interested in going to buy the book, there's Amazon. It's on Amazon. No Gray Areas at Joe Gagliano. Facebook has a No Gray Areas page. Instagram, Twitter, everything's titled No Gray Areas. And if you type that into the internet and Google, I mean, you can get enough to keep you reading for days.
No doubt. So as we finish up here, I have a final question for you. Let's pretend that someone listening, they're standing in front of what I would call the superhero outfit store. They're going, man, I want to give this entrepreneur thing a try. Yet, in the back of their mind, they have this voice. And I know you've done battle with this voice. It's that voice that comes up anytime we say we're going to go do something great. It reminds us of all the failures we've had in the past, the things that we've never done. And for some people, they're even related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend for a second that the person listening is actually going to follow through and do exactly what you suggest. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you tell them to do?
Put a plan in place and stick with it. Just don't deviate from it. Trust your gut, trust your instincts, validate others, validate your documents, validate your decisions, but just put a plan in place. Don't go into it knowing that you're going to have to shift on the fly a little bit, and that's great, but put a plan in place where you believe is the pathway to success. And don't deviate from it, and don't compromise your integrity because you think there's more rewards on the other side. Because once you compromise your integrity in the marketplace or in life in general, you're done. You're done. Warren Buffett says it takes 20 years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to lose it. So you compromise your integrity, especially in the business world, you're done. So put the plan in place, a plan that you're going to stick with, and a plan that has integrity behind it.
Nice and well said. Well, I definitely want to take the moment to say I appreciate all that you're doing. I appreciate the message that you're giving, and the fact that you're taking your most valuable asset, time, and investing that in other people so that they can learn the lessons that you've paid full price for. So thank you for sharing your knowledge, insight, and wisdom here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Hey, Jay, I really do appreciate the time, buddy. Anything you need from me moving forward, you've got my number. Don't hesitate to give me a call.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means nograyareas.com, because you know from the short time we've invested today, you've produced a return. If you want a greater return, feel free to pick up a copy of the book and live the lessons vicariously through his words. Here's the thing. I hope that you heard that. Put a plan in place. Stick with it. Believe. You don't have to prove the plan. You're going to prove the plan, but also stay flexible with the plan, because at the end of the day, until you go out there to start putting things into the marketplace, you don't know what's going to happen. But I know this. If you do nothing, your greatness never gets a chance to shine. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.